Welcome to Back on the Stack, a cEDH channel. The group got together online again to record some spicy cEDH action. We hope you enjoy watching it as much as we enjoyed playing it. Please leave a comment letting us know what you thought about the gameplay. We are always taking advice to tune our games into the best production that we can. If you do enjoy the video, please like, subscribe, and share with friends. Now, let's get right into it and see what decks are being piloted.
Hey everybody, it's Eli here, and tonight I'm piloting the partner pair of Ardenn, Intrepid Archaeologist, and Jeska, Thrice Reborn. This deck seeks to cheat equipment onto Ardenn and swing for massive amounts of damage. Jeska's a fun partner pair because I can triple damage dealt by Ardenn through Jeska's ability, or utilize Jeska as an infinite mana outlet. I kept this 7 because I have mana, a tutor to hopefully go grab a mana crypt, a sword, and a skull clamp, which is one of the most broken draw engines in an Ardenn deck.
Hello, my name is Adam, and I'm the owner of the game store, the Mana Vault MKE, an LGS dedicated to Eternal Magic, including cEDH and Legacy, located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. For Game 1, I am on a mulligan to 6, which is more like a mulligan to 5 because I'm utilizing a Gemstone Caverns in order to play a turn 1 Rhystic Study. It's probably one of the best things you can do in cEDH, and if you're not planning on doing something like that or better, you're probably planning your hands wrong.
Howdy, my name is Levi, and today I'm playing Roxanne Starfall Savant. This deck aims to make a lot of mana, control the board, and eventually win with a Temur Sabertooth Dockside Loop or Food Chain. This opening hand I kept, hopefully, turn 1 Roxanne, which will let me control the board and get to the late game.
Tonight I'm piloting Marneus Calgar. I've been having a ton of fun playing with this list. The win cons are a simple Thassa's Oracle combo, or make infinite mana, which can then be sunk into either Walking Ballista or Marneus himself. Because Marnie draws you a card anytime you create a token, the deck synergizes really good with cards like Charismatic Conqueror, Lotho, Shorikai, or Smothering Tithe. I kept this opening hand because I had a turn 1 Esper, half a combo piece, and a mana crypt. With introductions out of the way, Eli will kick us off. But first, Adam has a pregame action and puts Gemstone Caverns into play, exiling Birds of Paradise. Eli draws and plays Scalding Tarn for turn. He pays a life, sacks it, and fetches up Plateau to the battlefield. He casts Gamble. He tutors a card to his hand and then randomly discards Arid Mesa. He casts Mana Crypt. He casts Lightning Greaves. He passes the turn. Adam draws and plays Underground Sea for turn. He exiles Elvish Spirit Guide from his hand to add a green mana to his pool, and then he casts Rhystic Study. He passes the turn. Levi draws and plays Bloodstained Mire for turn. He pays a life, sacks it, and fetches up Taiga to the battlefield. He casts Mana Crypt. Rhystic triggers and Adam draws. Levi casts Mox Diamond. Rhystic triggers and Adam draws. Mox Diamond ETBs and Levi discards Ancient Tomb. He taps out to cast Minsk and Boo, Timeless Heroes. Rhystic triggers and Adam draws. It ETBs and Levi creates a 1/1 Boo token. He activates the +1 ability, putting 3 +1/+1 counters on Boo. He moves to combat and swings his Hasty Hamster at Adam. Adam takes 4 damage. Levi moves through phases and passes the turn. J-Rock draws and plays Flooded Strand for turn. He pays a life, sacks it, and fetches up Tundra to the battlefield. He casts Mana Crypt. Rhystic triggers and Adam draws. J-Rock casts Esper Sentinel. Rhystic triggers and he pays. He passes the turn. In his upkeep, Eli loses his crypt roll and takes 3 damage. He draws and plays Battlefield Forge for turn. He casts his commander, Ardenn, Intrepid Archaeologist. Rhystic triggers and he pays. He equips Lightning Greaves to Ardenn. He moves to combat and swings Ardenn at Minsk, bringing the loyalty counters down to 2. Eli moves through phases and passes the turn. Adam draws and plays City of Traders for turn. He casts Arcane Signet. Esper triggers and J-Rock draws. Adam then casts his commander, Najeela, the Blade Blossom. Adam passes the turn. In his upkeep, Levi loses his crypt roll and takes 3 damage. He draws and immediately goes to combat. He swings Boo at Adam. Adam declares no blocks and takes 4 more hamster damage. In his second main phase, Levi activates Minsk and Boo's -2 ability, sacrificing Boo, dealing 4 damage to Najeela. He then draws 4 cards. He plays Stomping Grounds for turn, shocking it in. He casts his commander, Roxanne, Starfall Savant. Rhystic triggers and Adam draws. Roxanne ETBs and he creates a meteorite token. It ETBs and Levi has it deal 2 damage to Esper for lethal. He then passes the turn. In his upkeep, J-Rock wins his crypt roll. He draws and plays Arid Mesa for turn. He pays a life, sacks it, and fetches up Scrubland to the battlefield. He casts Grim Monolith. Rhystic triggers and Adam draws. J-Rock casts Imperial Seal. Rhystic triggers and this time he pays. J-Rock then tutors a card to the top of his library and loses 2 life. He then passes the turn. In his upkeep, Eli wins his crypt roll. He draws and plays a basic Plains for turn. He casts Dockside Extortionist. Rhystic triggers and he pays. Dockside ETBs and Eli creates 7 treasure tokens. He casts Sword of Feast and Famine. Rhystic triggers and he pays. He equips Lightning Greaves to Dockside. He then casts Skull Clamp. Rhystic triggers and he pays. He casts his other commander, Jeska, Thrice Reborn. Rhystic triggers and this time Adam draws. He activates Jeska's 0 ability targeting Ardenn, allowing it to deal triple damage. Eli moves to combat and Ardenn triggers. He equips Sword of Feast and Famine and Skull Clamp to Ardenn. He declares Ardenn as attacking Levi. Levi declares no blocks and takes 15 commander damage. Sword of Feast and Famine triggers and Levi discards Llanowar Elves and Eli untaps all his lands. In his second main phase, he re-equips Lightning Greaves to Ardenn. He then passes his turn. Adam draws and casts Chrome Mox. It ETBs and he imprints Drannith Magistrate. He casts Talisman of Curiosity. He plays Tundra for turn. City of Traders triggers and he sacrifices it. He recasts his commander, Najeela. He passes the turn. In his upkeep, Levi wins his crypt roll. He draws and plays Command Tower for turn. He casts Vexing Shusher. Rhystic triggers and he pays. He casts Eldritch Evolution, sacrificing Vexing Shusher as an additional cost. Rhystic triggers and he pays. It resolves and he tutors Roaming Throne to the battlefield. It ETBs and he names Druid. He moves to combat and declares Roxanne at Jeska. On attack, Roxanne triggers to create a meteorite token. Roaming Throne then gives Roxanne an additional trigger and Levi creates 2 tokens. They ETB and he has one deal 2 damage to Dockside and the other deal 2 damage to Najeela. Then Roxanne deals 4 damage to Jeska for lethal. In his second main phase, Levi casts Bird of Paradise. Rhystic triggers and Adam draws. Levi passes the turn. In his upkeep, J-Rock loses his crypt roll. He draws and plays Reflecting Pool for turn. He casts Grim Tutor. Rhystic triggers and he pays. It resolves and he tutors a card into hand and loses 3 life. He then passes the turn. In his upkeep, Eli loses his crypt roll and takes 3 damage. He draws and casts Esper Sentinel. Rhystic triggers and he pays. He moves to combat and Ardenn triggers. He equips Skull Clamp to Levi's Birds of Paradise. The bird dies due to state-based actions and Eli draws 2 cards. He then declares Ardenn attacking Levi. Levi declares no blocks and takes 4 more commander damage. Sword of Feast and Famine triggers and Levi discards Mana Vault and Eli untaps all of his lands. In his second main phase, Eli equips Skull Clamp to Esper. It dies due to state-based actions and Eli draws 2 more cards. He plays Spire of Industry for turn. He casts Savine's Reclamation, targeting Dockside in his graveyard. Rhystic triggers and he pays. In response, Adam casts Flusterstorm. It resolves and counters Savine's Wreck. Eli passes the turn. Adam draws and plays Command Tower for turn. He casts Esper Sentinel. He moves through phases and passes the turn. In his upkeep, Levi wins his crypt roll. He draws and plays Firelit Thicket for turn. He moves to combat and declares Roxanne at Adam. On attack, he creates 2 more meteorite tokens. They ETB and he has both do 2 damage each to Eli's face. In his second main phase, Levi casts Nature's Lore. Rhystic and Esper both trigger and he pays for both. He then passes the turn. In his upkeep, J-Rock wins his crypt roll. He draws and plays Exotic Orchard for turn. He casts Power Artifact, targeting Grim Monolith. Rhystic and Esper both trigger and he pays for both. J-Rock then presents a loop of creating infinite colorless mana through tapping Grim Monolith for 2 mana and then untapping it for 1 through Power Artifact. It's important to note that at this point, Adam was giving the table vibes that he had counter magic in hand for a win attempt. So, trying to bait out interaction, J-Rock casts Enlightened Tutor. Rhystic triggers and he pays. It resolves and he tutors Smothering Tithe to the top of his library. With 1 card left in hand, he decides to go for it. He casts Walking Ballista, where X equals 420. The table looks to Adam for answers, and he states that he is often known as the King of Bluffing. Ballista resolves, and J-Rock removes 1/1 counters from it, pinging all of his opponents to death, and J-Rock wins the game. Adam was a pretty chill dude to play Magic with, so we decided to try again. We re-randomized seat order, but the dice decided we would remain in the exact same seat positions.
For game 2, I kept a hand that gave me a turn 1 Ardenn and a turn 1 Goblin Engineer, allowing me to grab any equipment in my deck and cheat it onto Ardenn on turn 2.
For game 2, I'm keeping a pretty mana-intensive hand. This hand is basically attempting to win the game as fast as possible. I'm generating 5 mana on turn 1. It's allowing me to cast a Demonic Tutor to set up an Underworld Breach line with Intuition on my second turn if the coast is clear.
Howdy, Levi again. And this hand has a lot more of a game plan than game 1. I have a Teamer Sabertooth in hand and 2 ways of finding Dockside. Let's hope it works.
In game 2, I kept my second 7. I think it's pretty clear why. A turn 1 Rhystic is every player's dream. I just wish I wasn't sitting in 4th seat again. I obviously don't have any interaction or other things to do, but I'm hoping to get deep with this Rhystic study and see what I can draw into. With opening hands decided, Eli will kick us off. But first, J-Rock has a pregame action and puts Gemstone Caverns into play, exiling Caves of Kolios. Eli draws and casts Jeweled Lotus. He sacks it to help cast his commander, Ardenn. He casts Mox Diamond. It ETBs and he discards Scalding Tarn. He casts Mox Opal. He casts Lion's Eye Diamond. He casts Goblin Engineer. It ETBs and he tutors Sword of Fire and Ice into his graveyard. He passes the turn. Adam draws and plays City of Traders for turn. He casts Felwar Stone. He casts Mox Opal. He casts Lotus Petal. He casts Demonic Tutor. It resolves and he tutors a card to hand. He passes the turn. Levi draws and plays Grove of Burn Willows for turn. He taps it for green and each opponent gains a life. He casts Llanowar Elves. He passes. J-Rock draws and casts Mana Crypt. He casts Rhystic Study. He plays City of Brass. He passes. Eli draws and plays Plateau for turn. He activates Goblin Engineer, sacrificing Lion's Eye Diamond as an additional cost. He returns Sword of Fire and Ice to the battlefield. He moves to combat and Ardenn triggers. He equips the sword to Ardenn and then declares him as an attacker at Adam. Adam takes the damage, sword triggers, and Eli has it do 2 damage to Adam's face. Then Eli draws a card. In his second main phase, he casts Dauntless Dismantler. Rhystic triggers and J-Rock draws. Eli passes the turn. In his upkeep, Adam casts Intuition, targeting Eli. Rhystic triggers and J-Rock draws. It resolves and he tutors up Brain Freeze, Lion's Eye Diamond, and Silence. Eli chooses to have Adam put Brain Freeze to hand and the other 2 into his graveyard. He then draws for turn. He plays Underground Sea for turn. City of Traders triggers and he sacrifices it. He exiles Simeon Spirit Guide from his hand to add 1 red mana to his pool. He casts Underworld Breach. Rhystic triggers and J-Rock draws. Adam casts Brain Freeze. Rhystic triggers and J-Rock draws. Brain Freeze resolves and Adam targets himself, milling 9 cards. He escapes LED from his graveyard, exiling 3 cards. Rhystic triggers and J-Rock draws. He cracks LED for 3 white, discarding his hand, which was just a land. He then escapes Silence, exiling 3 cards. Rhystic triggers and this time he pays. With the board now silenced, Adam presents his win. He is able to present a loop to escape LED, crack it for 3 blue, escape Brain Freeze, and mill himself until he is able to mill his entire library. He then escapes Thassa's Oracle, and with his devotion to blue being greater than the cards in his library, Adam wins the game. A big thank you goes to Adam for all that he and his team at the Mana Vault are doing for the cEDH community, and of course, for taking time out of his busy schedule to play a few games with us. In Game 1, Levi was able to show us how this new Gruul commander can both control the board by eliminating creatures, and make a decent amount of mana by tapping rocks. Ultimately, however, J-Rock's unthreatening board state allowed him to slip under the radar with multiple tutors for the win. In Game 2, Adam was able to slap down an impressive turn 2 Breach line, a combo that is very hard to stop once the pieces are in order. We hope you enjoyed watching the production. Feel free to check out the deck links listed below, and we will see you back on the stack.